Listeners, welcome back to HTO Football. Delighted to join you again. It's me, Tom, your co-host. Andrew's also with me in the hot seat, but we're joined by a couple of people this evening. Firstly, Jay Winter. Jay, how are you?
Hey, good evening. I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Jay's going to join us and help us ask our special guest a few questions this evening, but I will flick it to my co-host. Andrew, I trust you're well, and I trust you're looking forward to this evening's recording.
Yeah, just a little bit. We're delighted to welcome our third FA Cup winner onto the podcast, but actually our very first World Cup winner, the one and only Arsenal and German legend Per Mertesacker. Per, are you well? You still bouncing after last night's 4-1 victory over the dark side?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks very much for having me here on this podcast. And yeah, obviously, with a win, you always feel better, entering a new week of craziness in youth football.
Yeah, the craziness continues. I mean,
just craziness in football.
Absolutely.
So you've been at the club obviously coming up to nearly a decade now, Per. It seems like it's whizzed by, right? 2011 at the end of that very hectic transfer window in the summer. When you arrived, Per, at the club, did you feel that this is a place I could see myself for along a decade and continuing?
Probably not. No, you come with obviously. I came here, 26, 27 years old. Almost at my peak, of my footballing career. So you expect kind of going into your 30s and then looking to retire. That kind of expectation, 3-4 years of good football left in me at the highest level in the Premier League. And then obviously the plan as a family would have been to go back to Germany. That is kind of the expectations I started here. And it came obviously totally different, and I'm happy about it.
And so, what like you say, it's evolved in a different way than as you maybe initially envisaged. What was that change? I mean, obviously, we'll get to it in a minute. Phenomenal display in that FA Cup final. We just got to quickly slip that in there. A nice little win there. But then, this opportunity comes a year later in terms of to take your role in the academy. Was that something that you'd seen again early in your career, or was it sort of like, I'm going to be a manager, I'm going to go into TV, or was actually going into youth coaching and academy leadership something you'd always wanted to do?
Yeah, I think the biggest question footballers have to ask themselves, what's going to happen after, and the question that people don't want to tackle. Essentially, I didn't want to tackle it. And then you kind of are at the club with revolutionaries like Arsene Wenger, and when people like him come to you and ask you, can you see yourself staying at the club? You kind of think twice then, what is my next step going to look like? Obviously, I'm very happy, to stay in football, because that's something that gave me so much throughout my career and throughout my life, and to pass on some of my experience and knowledge to the next generation of players was always something that maybe could be potentially something for me. However, until it faces you kind of with a lot of injuries I had towards the end of my career, and then someone actually mentoring you and thinking highly of you, that's something that doesn't come across very often. So until that point, 1 year left on my contract, not knowing really what the situation would be, and someone asked me if I would want to stay at the club, obviously that meant as well him saying to me, listen, your days as a footballer are over, basically, So you have to admit at one stage that is probably over. But on the other hand, another chapter opens up right in front of me. So from that moment, it really hit me. And I thought a week about, I want to retire now. It's the best place and the best position to be in. I don't want to go back to Germany and not meeting expectations, from a FA Cup winner, World Cup winner. I didn't want to go into that trap, basically. So from that moment, I've tried to prepare as hard as I could for the next kind of term in my career, which was not easy.
So on the one hand, it's a huge compliment that people see that in you. But on the other hand, you're like, what? Are you really telling me I can't do another 10 years in the Arsenal first team? Outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite realistic, on that front. And my perspective was always that, especially, when we won the FA Cup in 2017, it was a great achievement. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to belittling it here in any sense. However, I was out for a year, didn't play many minutes. 5 weeks before that, I actually said to Arsene, listen, it's not working for me. I'm not in the squad. I'm not playing. Just sent me on holidays, basically. You know, that these were the kind of conversation I had before playing a FA Cup final, which sounds a little bit weird. But then from that moment, probably, yeah, I played that phenomenal game, but I knew I can't repeat that, you know, on a weekly basis. I literally put everything into that performance. So I knew the season after would be me trying to train at a high level and trying to mentor, trying to have high standards for the group. You know, that was my last season, basically. So I had time to meet up with academy staff, you know, and trying to prepare myself for the new role, which is brilliant. If you have a year of transition, doing my B license, plus the fact to get to know academy staff and players and trying to kind of prepare that journey, that was amazing for me and just the right thing to do. However, you know, if someone tells you you're probably not good enough anymore, but I was realistic in that moment, so I kept calm.
Yeah.
I kept calm.
You mentioned the word calm there, Per, and that's a word I think that seeps through your whole career, really, leading a lot of fans to label you as such a great reader of the game. Is that a skill that you had naturally as a young centre-back, or is that something that with experience over time you managed to pick up, that where you could smell danger in the box that you just did so brilliantly on consistently?
Yeah, I think that's something I had from the very early beginning, you know, always regarded to be a sweeper. You know, at the start of my, let's say 4, 5, 6 years old, my dad took me to the game of football. I just stood next to the goalkeeper trying to, you know, smell danger wherever it was in front. So no, I was no one that kind of trying to score goals or something. And then in my early stages playing football, I was always someone who could read early, you know, and would be in a good position to defend anything. So that was probably a skill that was I was naturally gifted. However, you know, you need to evolve that, you know, as soon as you evolve that, when the speed, you know, goes up, going for the levels, you have to evolve that skill, that natural skill, to the next level. So, and it felt so I didn't have to change my game as much as being like someone who likes to cover, likes to see and read situations. I didn't have to change massively from playing fourth league to Bundesliga. You know, that's something that I played simple, my game, obviously adjusting to the tempo. However, I didn't change as much as just being myself and giving value to the team by reading well, by winning my duels, finding the right shirt at the right moment. That was basically me. So in terms of that, I always used to do that and then continue until the highest level, playing at Arsenal, playing for Germany. So yeah, I think to answer your question, naturally I was that kind of player. However, you know, you need to upskill yourself. You know, you cannot just rely on those things. So
So you've probably been asked this on a few occasions, Per, about your transition from the German game to the English game, and everyone's asked it, aren't they? As soon as they come over to the Premier League, it's like, what's it like to play in the Premier League?
Yeah.
What were the big changes for you?
Oh my God! I mean, you wake up on the pitch and thinking, what's going on here, man? I read that totally wrong. Someone that pushes me away just for fun. The physicality and the speed of the game is totally different. That's why everyone wants to play that. You know, Premier League is regarded as the best for me. Yeah, the quickest and the most physical league I've ever played in. So comparison to Germany, totally different. And yeah, I struggled, you know, especially my first year. And then obviously you need good people around you who can see something in you. Like Arsene always said to me, you're intelligent enough to adapt, which I pretty much doubted, you know, when went to Norwich away, got, you know, massive mistake, you know, we were 1-0 down basically. And then you had players like Robin van Persie saving the day, we win 2-1, and you kind of get along with that, right? Massive mistake from my part, but actually you win the game and you kind of grow along that kind of grow along great players who save the day. So something that I will never forget, Robin, for me to introduce me into the English game. But massive switch, you know, and you see in the new Chelsea players came from Germany, it's a tough task, you know, and you see that and they realize, you know, we play against Brighton. It's not the same as playing against Augsburg, Cologne. It's different. You know, all these players can play. All these players have tempo. All these players play Premier League for a long time. So yeah, I can really feel with them. And I always, if I get asked, I always tell them the story, and hopefully they can make the most out of their second, third, fourth season to have an impact.
Do you think as the game has sort of sped up, I suppose, and the pace is so intense now, do you think that skill of reading the game, Per, is even more important in the modern game as a centre back?
Yeah, probably. You get put under pressure a lot earlier, a lot quicker, and some players can adjust, some cannot. That's the basic, and you need to learn from the mistakes fairly quickly. So my understanding, I did a lot of mistakes early days, but probably the best season I played was, let's say 14, 15. So 3 years after, basically, I came to the league. So the first year I struggled a lot, got injured, long-term injury, went to the Euros, didn't play a single game, but then, came out much better, stronger, and evolving and adjusting to that being under pressure much quicker is sometimes a big struggle. So I cope with it quite well, but I wouldn't underestimate if some cannot cope with it. I need to go a different route. Absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned that the injury in your first year at Arsenal, Per, and did that impact things in terms of like imposing your leadership skills on the squad? Because let's face it, Arsenal's a club we know as fans. Like every year, it's like we need leaders, and then Per Mertesacker turns up, and it's like, right, we've got our man. Did you feel was it frustrating with the injury?
Yeah, absolutely. And what tends to happen is, especially when you got a long-term injury, I knew I was out for 3 months, and I knew from that time I wouldn't hang out much, because what I tend to do is completely get out of the bubble and go to rehab clinic somewhere else. So I wasn't around probably for a month, because I didn't want to go into that kind of story of being around the training ground every single day. You see the lads training, getting out to the training pitch, preparing for games. I think when you're injured, you kind of are in your own bubble. You have to. It is difficult to be in the training ground. That is my experience, and I was 27 at that time, and I had already injuries, so I knew how to cope with it in the best possible way for myself. It's a little bit of selfish in terms of leadership and being someone that is regarded as a leader. Something that Arsene Wenger said to me in the first phone call we had together. Yeah, we want you to come here to bring your leadership, everything in German. That was as well really impressing. However, I couldn't do my job then, So I kind of admitted I can't do my job right now. However, I expected that, after the first season, that would be tough, And then we had Laurent Koscielny, Thomas Vermaelen being in front of me, basically, So I had to challenge the skipper at that time, Thomas Vermaelen, in the second season. And Laurent, he played anyway every single game. So it was a tough time. However, missing 3 months plus missing any game of the Euros in 2012 kind of challenged me. So I was kind of fit and ready once preseason kicked in. Injury was healed, didn't play a single game, so I could kickstart. I didn't have to recover from any kind of games and extended season, which happened a lot before that. So I could really kickstart, and then all of a sudden, I just wanted to be myself, and I knew if I'm myself, I have high standards for myself and for other people. It just would grow naturally in the first couple of months for me being back, that I was regarded that I could be an option. And literally throughout that season, Arsene Wenger decided that Laurent and myself would be a good pairing in terms of the qualities we have would match. And we had fantastic spells together, and you could really sense a partnership grow, and we had fantastic spells. So but I knew, the second season would be tougher because more was demanded for myself. However, I knew I would match those demands by being myself and having high standards, as I said.
Yeah, you mentioned about obviously the amount of resilience that those challenges instill in you, Per, and I guess you can. There's a lesson of hope there, isn't there, for someone like a Gabriel Martinelli, for example, that's been going through bad injury problems at such a young age. As an academy manager, is that something that you try and relay to your younger guys, that you have to almost face adversity to strengthen, right?
Yeah, embrace it. Even go a step further. Embrace adversity, and it is really our responsibility for a lot of youngsters to let them know there's adversity. For some of them, there's none. Playing up, getting the pat on the back, scoring goals, you're the best player, you're this, you're that. You get a lot of stuff that is normal and a lot of expectations from parents, from people around, and from ourselves. However, how can we instill, adversity when there's none? So that's the challenge for all of us, for coaches, for myself, because I know how much it helped me. My younger ages, being told off, being told you're never going to make it, missing a year of a growth spurt when I was 15, 16. These things made myself and made me so resilient. So sometimes you need to go through this experience, which make you stronger at the end of the day.
However, I was going to ask actually that in terms of the differences that you can see from yourself when you were in youth setup when you were growing up to now, that obviously in many ways, so many things, potentially a club like Arsenal with the investments we make in our academies, so much easier. But equally, so many more differences. It must be worlds apart in terms of the pressures that these young players face. So potentially less on. There's so many more facets, isn't there, to the kind of development? Maybe not just as players, but people, spotlight, media pressures, potentially stuff that didn't exist, or certainly not to the same degree when you were younger.
Yeah, and that I'm very. Well, I think so. That I'm humble enough to understand that there's a game changer in social media right now, within the normal society and an underage transfer market, where, talented kids drive around London and find their best fit. But ultimately what they're doing is, getting told a lot of this, and you get this here, and this is what we have. That is a tough one, for any kind of parent and player to be in. So I need to learn and grow, being an academy manager, and the club allows me to do so, to as well, to hire people who have that knowledge and can mentor me and help me to understand that, to make the best possible decisions. However, we have fantastic facilities. We have people who work full-time on site. We have nearly 100 people influencing one player, throughout their journey. Just the numbers are just tough to understand and realize, and the amount of work we put into tournaments, abroad, not right now, but tournaments, and trying to develop these players into well-rounded ones sometimes is a little bit too much for someone to take on. And once that academy bubble burst at one stage, is not what society gives, on a regular basis. So it is a tough environment to be in. And we as staff need to educate ourselves constantly, on those constraints that we create. And, at fault, we are at fault that we pay for potential. We, not something that I necessarily want, and something that I have to probably sometimes, chuck the moral I have, out of the window, where you say, you pay, sometimes a 70-year-old for potential, that's what we do. That's the market we're in. So, but however, I feel like that we have more and more people, myself included, who want to give perspective, want to give education. What is the reality of entering the academy at under 9? Is that less than 1% make it to professional football? That's the reality of an academy graduate, or an academy person, or an academy player that joins us at under 9. So we need to have that in the back of our minds constantly when we make decisions.
But what about that pride that when a player, like you said, because it is, you're paying for potential. There's a lot of pressure on these young players. There's a lot of media spotlight already, thousands of followers on social media, which is just crazy for what essentially are kids, and yet, but like you said, then there must be an immense pride when you do see some players. And I'm thinking this season, namely, if we look at the names that are starting to break through as mainstays of the Arsenal 11, people like Saka, people like Emil Smith-Rowe, like it must be fantastic when that happens.
These are the examples, we work for on a daily basis, but we are very, very proud of those examples, because they are very powerful. But I think that, these, we call them strong young gunners, that's kind of the vision for the academy, which sometimes you feel, just the one who turn up to be at the Emirates is a strong young gunner. We're trying to develop strong young gunners anywhere in the world. And that's the challenge, we kind of put to ourselves, that in any business of the world, there should be strong young gunners. That is our kind of vision, towards. But however, obviously, when someone enters the academy at under 9 level, there's a vision for him to play at Emirates. Of course. And that's one of our, selling points, when we can get Bukayo, Emile Smith-Rowe on a, let's say on a call online now with the under-8 squad and parents, they love it, because I'm just feeling that they will never forget that in their lives, and the influence that will have on them youngsters is positive. We want to share and create positive memories for staff and players as much as we can, that they have, as I said, positive memories, a positive time, and that they are role models, no matter where they end, role models for the next generation.
Absolutely. You sound very passionate about the role. Is this something you see yourself doing in sort of like won't put you on the spot in terms of the Arsenal role, but in terms of are you definitely going to be here in 5 years? Tell us now. But in terms of youth development and academy management, we look at people like, today was breaking news that Frank Lampard was obviously released by Chelsea. The pressures of being a first team coach, does that interest you at all, or actually are you still so wrapped up in youth development and academy coaching?
Yeah, at the moment I'm wrapped up. Obviously, I did my badges, B license, A license, to be equipped to make calls on coaches as well. I didn't want to just be the ex-professional who does nothing, just to justify my job now. I need to learn a lot. So I want to be a lifelong learner. I want to be a role model for the youngsters to do something, next to their football, basically, when they grow up. So I need to be on the forefront on that kind of pillar of being a lifelong learner. I've had 3 weeks with Freddie, which was an intense time, which I look back on. The club's trusting me to pick up, when there's something to do, which is good. However, managing and being a coach, I think that's not something I'm looking to do. So managing the academy is something that fulfills me completely, in the position I am right now, and the trust the club gives me, alongside Edu and Mikel. That's something that really excites me for the short term. So you
don't fancy getting 200 million plus from Roman Abramovich just to get your marching order 18 months later?
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. So, I try not only to speak passionately about something, but to put really effort into it and to be hardworking. That's something I can relate to. And I didn't know what to expect from the role, when I first started, when I first got offered it. Now I know the landscape, and there's a lot of things to do, a lot of people to connect with, staff and players. And if you want to have an impact, you need to be there. You need to be present. This is not a role for me where I just show my face or do a couple of podcasts, speak passionate about it. You want to have an influence on the players. So they need to see you. They need to feel you. They need to see you behaving the way I behave. Otherwise, we have no chance to change the landscape of youngsters who just not just dream about playing football, which is fantastic, but have a perspective on how do I create a positive life and be a role model for the next generation if they don't see role models, of the older generations.
You mentioned
just touching on that, Per.
Oh, sorry, go for it, Jay.
Yeah. So in terms of the whole media training with all the youngsters and stuff like that, there's an iconic interview with you after the match against Algeria in the 2014 World Cup. It's one I personally really admire, and I'm sure you remember it as well. Would you advise the academy kids to approach interviews with the same amount of honesty that you did?
I don't know. So we're doing media training. So I think the advice goes within to keep composure, keep calm, be realistic, say the right lines. However, honesty sometimes is a good guide, for myself, and especially after playing 120 minutes, and then obviously the spotlight is on you. You kind of forget everything around you. You forget cameras. So this is a good example of something I would show. However, and it wasn't abusive or something like that. It was just something where I tried to stand up for something that I really believed. And this is the world of having an opinions, So the journalist can have an opinion. However, you can disagree with that opinion. In that moment, I was probably a little bit, heated and had a couple of, kind of rants where you probably wouldn't advise to. However, if it doesn't cross the line, it didn't cross the line, So it's a good example to show. And just from the outside perspective, people would then embrace that honesty and just make it that you really, stood up for something that you believed by respectfully challenge. It's something that we speak often about, and we're really keen on our youngsters not to do an interview where they say absolutely nothing and just stand there for the sake of it. Have your own personality. At some stage you need to develop that, and even if that comes about, it is a fantastic thing to have. However, in the media training, we would probably advise to show them that there could be potentially different answers.
Talking of fruity language, though, and expletives, one of our viewers and listeners did write in and say one question they'd love to ask you is what you thought of your song that the Arsenal fans would sing for you. Did you love it? I mean, it's a great tradition of personalised songs at Arsenal, and I hope you enjoyed that one in general.
Yeah, not at the start, I guess. My feeling was that, I don't know, they don't like me, basically. But fairly quickly, someone told me, that's the humor of the English people, and they actually love you. So
Absolutely.
You get used to that. So now I know that it is quite iconic to get a song, and it was fairly early. I got it. I didn't understand it in the first place, but I was educated. So I didn't go into the interview saying, "Oh, people hate me," or "People don't like me here. I need to shoot off."
Like you said, lifelong learning. Do you know what I mean? Or you're never too young to learn new tricks.
Yeah, lifelong learning is a huge part of it. So I then from that moment, you got to embrace it.
Absolutely. How's life changed since Mikel came back to the club as a manager? What sort of have you felt that change in a big way? Is it a positive place to be? I presume you're not going to say it's a horrible place to be, but hopefully not. But how's it changed?
I mean, for me, obviously, we had a connection from our playing together. So for me, it changed massively in the sense of you have someone you trust. So it's a different ball game from our trust to one another, and just counting on each other. It's something different that we have developed, while playing together. So, his form of leadership, and I know it quite well. I learned from him. But I would say that, with our partnership, captain, vice captain worked really well, because we complemented each other so well in our natural leadership, because everyone is different. Everyone kind of feels it different. So I kind of, when he came in, because I was quite stressed in the 3 weeks being a manager. So when he came in, I just said to him, congratulations, but I'm off now. So he kind of took it over. We had a couple of conversations, but I think he has a clear idea and has clear values that quite match with the club ones, and to see that as a long-term kind of project for him as well, because we have to admit that we haven't been at the top for years now, for that to turn around and kind of create a club that's going to be successful within the Premier League and the Champions League again is quite a big task. So I don't envy him being in that position. However, I support him as much as I can, because I know how much he means it, how much the club means to him, and vice versa now, and how much we kind of rely on his strength and his leadership to kind of take us to the next level. And I'll do utmost everything to kind of help him and support him in that, because I know my role, I understand my role. So when he needs me, I'm here. When I need him, he's there for me as well. So it's not only a one-way thing, and I appreciate that from him.
I wanted to ask you about someone else that you complimented you particularly well on that final day in 2017, Rob Holding. What do you see in Rob? I mean, just signed a new deal. There are elements of his game that remind me of your style. Actually, he's a thinker. What's been your advice for Rob as he's developed?
Yeah, and I spoke to him just before he got injured. I saw clarity in his game, for the first time when I said to him, listen, you have clarity in your game, left foot, right foot, the simplicity. It looks genius to me. That's what I said to him. You kind of went to a point where he looks mature and experienced to take on the next level. Then he got injured, and I feel like he came back to what I saw in him when just before the injury. So I'm really pleased with his development as someone who is reliable, and that is the biggest quality on earth. Being reliable on and off the field. That's something for a centre back that is pretty much needed. That consistency that he has right now is quite critical in his career right now. To be in a position to lead and to role model the next generation. He is one of those who has to step up now for the sake of Arsenal and our club. And I really demand that from him now because, he has seen players, at Arsenal being there, guiding him, but that's over now, So he needs to develop into a leader that can take on the kind of responsibility to show the way for a lot of youngsters that come into the dressing room, So he's pretty much the one who needs to guide Bukayo, Emile, Reece, Joe, Ainsley to the next level, kind of, because he came from another academy. He came to Arsenal with low expectations, as he only cost 5 million, I guess. I think Arsene was kind of well known for that quote that people weren't happy because he didn't cost 55 million or something. I can remember that quote.
Yeah. That game at Leicester, wasn't it? The press conference.
Yeah. So no, I'll ask for him to step up, and I see that clarity in his game back again. So I'm really happy for him.
Well, one player who came with great expectations obviously left the club this month, Mesut. What would be your abiding memories of Mesut in an Arsenal shirt? Obviously, did come with those expectations.
Yeah.
In some quarters, very much lived up to them and had many great successes, and others, and probably at the end, not probably the Arsenal career he wanted towards the end. What would be your abiding memories of him playing for Arsenal?
Yeah, we have won some trophies together. And when you look back, and now social media world is brilliant in bringing up like kind of assists or goals that he scored, when you look at them, you kind of think
everything your stats, isn't it now? Yeah.
Kind of the impact he had on the club and the trophies we won and magic moments, that would have been probably a lot of him, a lot of him being on the pitch. So, and I played with him in Bremen, with the national team, Arsenal. So we had kind of, long-lasting memories forever. So I'm quite grateful that we played together. Obviously, the last year or so wasn't that good, So it is kind of, a bitter ending in that sense. However, I hope that he finds his way back, to playing consistently. That's what I wish him, because he has done so many great things, and so hopefully, he'll come back to his level and gets embraced there in Turkey, which I think he will be.
Yeah. What do you put that down to over the last sort of 12 months of Mesut? Do you think it was just a lack of fit with Mikel, or just?
Sometimes it's those things. New managers come in. Have they got their ideas on how to play, and and I think he didn't fit as much, as maybe before. So it's just a sense of that the fit wasn't there anymore. So and people move on from that, right? Even if it's sometimes difficult. And I hope he still can come back to his best and just, give us these moments where we think, he could have played, a couple of seasons for Arsenal still. So these moments will probably occur in the next couple of years. And I hope these will happen, for us all to really think about him and his game, which he deserves.
Yeah. Jay, I think you had a couple of questions from Per's time in the Bundesliga and Premier League as well. Now we mention his time there.
Yeah, I did actually. So obviously you just mentioned that you played with Ozil, for Werder Bremen. You played for the national team as well. So you must have come up, against some great opponents in that time. Who would you say is some of the hardest opponents that you've played against, and why?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Obviously, once you come into the Premier League, you kind of change the narrative of a tough opponent to play against. So, the likes of Aguero, Fernando Torres, are strikers that I had a tough time against, of the various reasons, I thought that Torres was one of the best strikers around the 2008, it's already 12 years ago, where we struggled to beat Spain in 2008, 2010, always lost big games, finals, semi-finals, European World Cup. Torres was always someone, and then his time at Liverpool, where he was probably the best striker because of he was an all-rounder, speed, agility, tempo, just composure was all there. Aguero, his legs are just dominant, dominant. His center of gravity is below the grass, basically, which makes it difficult for anyone to defend against. So, yeah, I was quite lucky to have matchups where I try not to focus too much on, the striker you play directly against. I try to focus on our kind of structure and how we could possibly best defend a striker together, which was not always the case. However, I try to think about not having a direct opponent in my head to make it a little bit more easier, approaching the game.
Try to drop off, let someone else take him on first, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought you were taking him. I think we're just glad that Aguero, has suffered some niggles down the years. Otherwise, I think, all the games he would have had 1,000 goals by now. That's the danger with him.
Yeah. So, in contrast, then, I really want to pick your brains about who is like one of the most underrated players you've ever played with. Maybe doesn't get the spotlight as much as they deserve. When you're training day in, day out with them, sort of thing. You really get to appreciate their talents. Is there anyone that sticks out for you in that category?
Yeah, I remember even Mikel Arteta used to say that about me, that I was underappreciated. I just want to make a point here. But when I look back at the days at Arsenal, a really player who was underestimated was Francis Coquelin. I remember him being a top guy in training, even when he played. It was difficult for him going through, coming from abroad to the youth side, and then breaking into it. He had his moments, but he was a great footballer and still is. Then he had this horrible Achilles injury. But someone that was underappreciated. And I think, it's just great to see him having success somewhere else as well.
He was outstanding on that day at the Etihad. Per, do you remember that game?
Yeah, absolutely. 1-2-0, right?
Yeah, Santi was running the show, but Coquelin was outstanding that game.
Yeah, Santi always rightly gets plaudits for that game because he was fantastic. But Francis was phenomenal as well. I hope you just quickly say, because when Arteta said that you're underrated, you should tell him that as a manager now. Just say, by the way, I think you're quite underrated. I think you're quite okay. You're okay. Just say, don't worry if the media don't think you're very good, Mikel. I personally think you're not too bad. But obviously, amazingly great for you to coming on today. One little small quick fire challenge that we always do with our guests is we'll just Andrew and I will fire some questions at you, and hopefully it can be 1 or 2 word answers. A little bit off kilter. So Andrew, you want to go for it?
Yeah, let's kick off then. First one, Per. Favorite sport apart from football?
Basketball.
Would you prefer Germany to win the World Cup again, or Arsenal to rise and win the Premier League again?
Arsenal Premier League, I think. I think so, but it's very close to it.
Yeah, and that's only because Germany won it so recently. If it was if it was 20 years for them,
already. So.
Yeah. We can edit that. We can edit that answer out.
Let us know if you want to keep it. Maybe record both and then tell us which one you prefer us to release on the day.
So the next one is favorite sports film, Per,
or documentary.
Favorite sports documentary. I watched The Last Dance, which was quite impressive, from Chicago Bulls run.
Fantastic.
Very impressive.
One centre back who you'd have loved to have played with in your career, but you never got the chance to.
Probably Tony Adams. Just to get a feel on how it, just how it feels to be next to someone who looks quite impressive and solid at the back.
Yeah, you would both would have been taking the game very one-paced. Yeah. Tony Adams is a legend. He's Mr. Arsenal. He's the greatest. But I think, I don't know. We'd have needed some very, very quick runners around you both. But
I thought you were picking him up, Tony.
yeah, definitely.
This is a classic. Ronaldo or Messi?
Yeah. From a very, very German selfish perspective, we always used to stop Messi with Argentina quite well. Portugal as well. However, I feel like at the moment, I would pick probably Ronaldo. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, it's your opinion. I mean, it doesn't have to be right. No, joking.
Used to be some kind of controversial, you know.
Yeah.
Well, look, they're both great. So I think we and Andrew and I and HTO are big fans of Messi, but it's very, you're talking splitting hairs. One question we always ask as well is, you've got 3 dinner guests are coming around to the Mertesacker household, dead or alive from the world of sport. You can ask anyone around. Who would you want to come for dinner?
World of sports, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I would pick Michael Jordan for sure. I would pick Muhammad Ali. I would love to see him. And I would pick LeBron James.
Nice. Basketball flavors. Very nice.
I was gonna say you've got the greatest basketball player ever, greatest boxer ever, the greatest footballer ever.
Yeah, you're going well.
And then another basketball player.
We're just, Andrew, just want to cover off a couple of other questions that have come in from listeners. While we've got, we've got a big Arsenal fan, Sal, is tweeted in, and he goes, where does Mertesacker get his Arsenal tracksuit bottoms from? He's 6'7" himself, and he says they're always too short, so he wants to get some bespoke ones like you get.
I don't know how they do it. I always struggle, you know. There always needs to be extra tailor-made trousers for myself, you know. So
absolutely.
It's quite difficult, you know, for me to get.
So the answer is unlucky. He's
unlucky,
not getting a contract. Yeah,
unlucky. That's you. I need a belt often because, you know, then it matches everything together. So,
two slightly more serious questions. What do you rate as your greatest personal individual performance?
Greatest individual from an expectation point of view, clearly it's 2017 against Chelsea, which I probably expected for myself nothing at all, and the fans neither. So I probably, in terms of low expectations and then coming out on top, that would be FA Cup final 2017. In terms of other great performances, I need to look at, you know, the finals that we played in. Probably Aston Villa, you know, 2015 when we won the second FA Cup against Benfica. That was one of performance where we dominated from the start really, but against a player that was highly regarded as a striker, physical target, we couldn't get a sniff. So
was that the best header of your Arsenal career, Per?
Yeah, head and shoulders, man. You know, I got a sponsorship deal after that, so
more relaxed than the whole final as well. A bit more relaxed, you know.
We got just one final question in on Twitter from Daniel. This is quite a nice one to end on, actually. What do you think is the most important thing to prepare a young player for when they make the step up from this to the senior game from academy level?
Wow. I hope to think that, you know, that kids have a humble opinion about themselves, you know, always to get better, you know, to work to get better. You know, I always link humility to, you know, where's my next gap? You know, I hope to think that we can build, you know, that kind of mentality, you know, which are linked to champion mentality, a player that, you know, especially when adversity kicks in, that kind of wanting to do something about it. Like the drive to, I always say, drive to improve, drive to compete, and drive to win. That's something we're trying to instill into every player to compete at the highest level and never stop, basically. Because, you know, my challenge to the young players is that once you're in the first team dressing room, that's when it starts, you know, not where you relax and think I've made it. So I think there's a lot in that answer, probably a little bit too long.
However, no, there's good stuff. And I think
there's enough character.
One advice is always difficult. I think, you know, there needs to be perspective of a lot of things, and we're trying to prepare them as much as we can.
Absolutely. Well, Per, we just want to say a massive thank you for coming onto the pod this evening. Thank you, obviously, for your support of our Willow Foundation fundraiser, and generally, obviously, from an Arsenal fans' perspective, thank you very much for your service over the years and continued service. As you say, the journey just doesn't stop when they get into the first team. It clearly goes on for a very long time, and hopefully very, very many years to come at Arsenal. So thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
No, we really appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, Per.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
So that was a brilliant chat to have on obviously a bit of an Arsenal hero there, but also a World Cup winning defender. Jay, how did you enjoy your experience on HTO with Per?
It was amazing. I mean, obviously it's my first appearance on this podcast, and straight away with Per Mertesacker. I mean, it doesn't really get any better than that, does it?
Yeah, it's only downhill from here, Jake.
Don't say that, guys. Just announcing next week's guest of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Just to say, keep everyone listening interested.
Yeah, and we've got another World Cup winner on next week. So
we've got Pele on next week. But that's great, and it's interesting to hear his reflections on what came across to me, guys. I don't know about you, is how hungry he was to continue learning, developing, as a professional, both and as a student of the game. Clearly, even still.
Definitely, I think always as a player, you always saw him as a very intelligent player. On and off the pitch, he was always, one of the more could really express his thoughts and opinions, and wasn't shy from being a proper leader. And I think you could always see that.
Yeah, I think the thought that's gone behind his whole planning process after playing as well reflects the style of play on the pitch. Very calm, thoughtful. And what I really loved from that chat was that whole message of life lessons. An academy is about developing young people, not just young footballers. And I think that's the message that hopefully the listeners would have enjoyed as well.
Also, a big shout out to sort of how many people, he said the hundreds of people that go into developing these young talents now, and the money that's spent on only potential, and to clearly what a big business it is, as well as sort of a growth of those individuals. It's clearly just such big business now. And also obviously quite interesting to get his candid thoughts on Mesut Ozil and his departure, and just the admission that maybe it didn't work out, see eye to eye with Mikel, but clearly a great player for his time at Arsenal. And some nice answers there to some of those questions from our listeners, whether that be long tracksuit trousers required from Adidas, or some stuff about his famous chant that Arsenal fans would sing for him when he was playing. I'm glad he realised it was affectionate though, because it was definitely an affectionate thing.
Well, that's another episode wrapped up at HTO Football, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Take care.